My name is Elena Vargas, and I was 27 when the fairy tale I'd meticulously crafted over 4 years crumbled in a matter of minutes. It was the morning of our wedding, September 28th, 2025, a date I'd circled in red on every calendar, dreaming of vows exchanged under a canopy of blooming orchids at the elegant venue we'd booked months in advance. My lace gown, a custom design with intricate beadwork that caught the light like stars, lay draped over the chase in the bridal suite. I stood there adjusting the delicate veil that cascaded down my back, my hands trembling slightly with what I thought was just pre-wedding jitters. Carlos's warm smile flashed in my mind, the way he'd held me during those late-night strategy sessions for our startup, Vargas Tech, whispering promises of a shared empire. We'd built it together, me with my coding expertise and business acumen, him with his charisma and connections. Everyone said we were unstoppable, a power couple destined for success. But at precisely 8:17 a.m., as I sipped chamomile tea to calm my nerves, a text from my cousin Marco, who was serving as one of Carlos's groomsmen, pierced the illusion like a dagger. "Play this in private. I'm sorry, Elena." Attached was a voice note, clocking in at 2 minutes and 47 seconds. My stomach plummeted as if I'd stepped off a cliff. I locked the door, sank onto the edge of the bed, and pressed play with a finger that felt numb. Carlos's voice filled the room, slurred from what sounded like a late-night whiskey session, but unmistakably clear and cutting. "Yeah, marry Elena for her business shares. She owns 60% of Vargas Tech. Then, quick divorce, hand him over to Dad. His affair with her will make it easy to frame her for embezzlement or whatever. She trusts me too much to see it coming." Laughter erupted in the background, harsh, mocking, and I recognized Richard's gruff chuckle, Carlos's father, the man who'd welcomed me into the family with open arms and business advice.
They continued, detailing the plan, forged documents to suggest I'd been siphoning funds, used planted evidence of a non-existent affair between Richard and me to discredit me in court, and walk away with my life's work. The startup I'd bored my soul into, coding through sleepless nights, pitching to investors until my voice went hoarse, it was all a pawn in their game. The room spun around me, the ornate mirror reflecting a woman I barely recognized, her face drained of color, eyes wide with shock. My breath came in sharp, shallow gasps, each one a stab of betrayal. I wanted to scream, to hurl my phone against the wall, to run out and confront them then and there. But instead, I sat frozen, the veil slipping from my fingers to pool on the floor like discarded dreams. They thought I was too trusting, too blind to their machinations. They had mistaken my love for weakness, my dedication for naivety.
In that moment, beneath the crushing heartbreak, a cold, unyielding resolve ignited like a spark in dry tinder. I closed my eyes, forcing the rising panic down into a tight ball in my chest. This wasn't the time for tears or hysteria. That would come later, in private. Right now, survival demanded clarity. Carlos and Richard had orchestrated this betrayal with chilling precision, but they hadn't counted on Marco's loyalty, or my own strength. I wasn't going to flee the venue in disgrace, nor was I going to dissolve into a puddle of grief. No, I was going to expose their fraudulent scheme in the most public, irreversible way possible. Right there, in front of every family member, friend, and business associate they'd invited to witness their triumph. My fingers, now steady with purpose, flew across my phone screen as I dialed my sister, Sophia, who was helping coordinate the wedding logistics. "Sophia, I need you to get me the projector from the venue's AV room, quietly, and tell Marco to be ready with his phone. We're going live if needed."
Her voice was laced with concern, but she didn't pry. She could hear the unshakable steel in my tone, the kind that brooked no argument. Next, I texted Carlos's sister, Leela, one of my bridesmaids who'd always been kind, but somewhat distant, perhaps sensing the undercurrents in her family. "Meet me in the bridal suite in 10 minutes. Bring your laptop. Urgent." She arrived promptly, her expression puzzled as she handed over the device without question. I wasted no time pulling up the voice note and saving it to a USB drive. Then I compiled a quick slideshow, scans of our business contracts, highlighting my majority ownership in Vargas Tech, screenshots of suspicious bank transfers showing $20,000 funneled from company accounts to an offshore entity linked to Richard, and a timeline of texts between Carlos and his father discussing ways to handle Elena's shares post-divorce. The church was alive with anticipation as I slipped in through a side door, my veil lowered, not for bridal tradition, but to conceal the fury etching lines into my face. Guests mingled in the pews, their conversations a low hum of excitement, pastel gift bags and floral arrangements dotting the space like innocent props in a play about to turn tragic. Carlos stood tall at the altar, his tuxedo impeccably tailored, a confident grin plastered across his face as if he were already savoring his victory. Richard occupied the front row, his posture radiating smug satisfaction, chatting amiably with my unsuspecting parents. My mom dabbed at her eyes with a lace handkerchief, mistaking her emotions for joyful tears. I nodded subtly to Marco, positioned near the sound booth with his phone's camera discreetly activated, ready to capture every damning moment. The organist began the soft, melodic prelude, signaling the start of the procession, and I stepped forward, not as the radiant bride gliding down the aisle, but as the avenger poised to dismantle their empire. The music halted abruptly as I signaled the AV technician, a young man who'd been briefed by Sophia moments earlier. The projector hummed to life on the large screen behind the altar, and suddenly, Carlos's slurred confession boomed through the speakers. Marry Elena for her business shares. Dad's affair with her will make it easy to frame her. The words echoed off the vaulted ceilings, hanging in the air like a death knell. A collected gasp swept through the congregation, heads whipping toward the screen where the slideshow advanced. Contracts, bank statements, incriminating texts, all laid bare. Carlos's grin evaporated in an instant, his face contorting into a mask of pale horror, eyes darting wildly between the screen and me. Richard surged to his feet, his voice booming with feigned outrage. "Turn that damn thing off! This is a setup!" But it was far too late. The evidence continued to unfold, slide after slide, painting an irrefutable picture of their conspiracy. My aunt let out a piercing scream. "What in God's name is this?" While my dad's voice thundered above the murmurs. "Elena, what the hell is going on?" I advanced to the altar, lifting my veil with deliberate slowness, locking eyes with Carlos in a gaze that could freeze lava. "Care to explain to everyone why you and your father plan to rob me blind, Carlos? Why you intended to frame me for an affair that never happened, all to steal Vargas Tech?" His mouth opened and closed soundlessly, like a fish floundering on dry land, his charisma deserting him when he needed it most. Richard bellowed again. "This is slander. She's lying to sabotage us." But the guests weren't buying it. Phones were out, recording the unfolding drama, whispers turning to shouts of disbelief. Leela, standing nearby with wide eyes, whispered hoarsely, "Elena, I swear I didn't know any of this." I believed her. Her shock was genuine, a crack in the family's facade. The ceremony, or what was left of it, disintegrated into utter pandemonium. Carlos lunged toward the projector in a desperate bid to shut it down, but Marco stepped in front of him, his stance firm and unyielding, phone still rolling. Richard's wife, Patricia, turned on him with a shriek that echoed through the hall. "An affair with her? You bastard!" The very lie they'd concocted to discredit me had backfired spectacularly, sowing seeds of doubt in their own relationships. Guests stormed out in waves, some pausing to offer me hurried words of support. "I'm so sorry, Elena. Call me if you need anything." While others hurled insults at Carlos and Richard. "Scammers! How could you?" My mom's sobs
cut through the noise like a knife, her handkerchief now soaked, but I remained steady, an island in the storm. "You thought I'd be clueless," I declared, my voice slicing through the tumult like a blade. "You thought I'd let you steal my company, my future, without a fight. Surprise, Carlos, I'm not your pawn anymore." By the time the police arrived, summoned by a quick-thinking guest who'd recognized the fraud elements in the slideshow, the church was half emptied. Carlos and Richard cornered against the altar like hunted animals, their empire of lies crumbling around them.
That night, back in the solitude of my apartment, the adrenaline that had sustained me finally ebbed away, leaving me crashing like a wave against rocks. I curled up on the couch, still clad in the simple rehearsal dinner dress I'd worn earlier, the wedding gown abandoned in its garment bag, like a relic of a life that never was. My phone vibrated incessantly. Texts from concerned friends, calls from family, notifications pinging as Marco's video began its viral ascent online. I ignored them all, my chest aching from the effort of holding myself together through the day's ordeal. The betrayal replayed in my mind. Carlos's tender touches that now felt like manipulations. Richard's paternal advice that masked greed. How had I missed the signs? The late-night business meetings, the sudden interest in my company's finances. But at 11 p.m., a furious pounding on my door shattered the quiet. Peering through the peephole, I saw Carlos, Richard, and Patricia, their faces twisted with a volatile mix of rage and desperation. My dad, whom I'd texted earlier for backup, stood behind them, his arms crossed in silent solidarity. "Let us in, Elena," Richard barked, his voice muffled but commanding. "We're settling this farce right now." Against my better judgment, I unlocked the door and stepped aside, not out of fear, but because I wanted them to witness firsthand that I wasn't the broken victim they expected. Carlos launched in first, his voice laced with entitlement and fury. "You've ruined us, Elena. That video, take it down immediately, or we'll make sure you regret it." I let out a sharp, bitter laugh that echoed in the tense room. "I didn't post it, Carlos. Your own lies did the posting for you." Patricia, her eyes blazing, snapped back. "You're destroying our family's reputation with this nonsense." I leaned forward, my gaze unwavering. "Your husband and son plan to frame me for an affair while stealing my entire company. That's not a reputation, it's a criminal enterprise." Richard's face reddened to a dangerous hue, veins bulging in his neck. "We'll sue you for defamation, you little—" My dad cut him off, his voice low and laced with menace. "I'm a retired attorney, Richard. Try it. I'll bury you in discovery before you even step foot in court." The air in the room thickened with unspoken threats, the weight of their defeat pressing down on them. Carlos, sensing the shift, tried a different tactic, his eyes welling with crocodile tears. "Elena, please, I love you. I messed up big time, but we can fix this. Let's talk it out." I stared at him, memories flooding back of the nights I'd trusted him implicitly, building Vargas Tech side by side, only for it to be a facade. "You don't love me," I replied, my tone icy. "You love my shares, my success. You saw me as a stepping stone, nothing more." They left shortly after, their bluster deflated, threats rimming hollow as they slammed the door behind them. The fallout cascaded like a domino effect in the days that followed. By morning, Marco's video had exploded to 10 million views across platforms. TikTok users turning my defiant line, "Surprise, I'm not your pawn," into a trending sound overlaid on empowerment montages. News outlets seized the story. Bride exposes fiancé's fraudulent scheme at the altar in viral video, with talking heads dissecting the business implications on morning shows. Carlos's chain of trendy restaurants, where he'd secretly diverted some of Vargas Tech's funds for investments, saw reservations plummet by 70% overnight, patrons boycotting in solidarity. Investors pulled out in droves, citing ethical concerns. Richard's real estate firm, already under scrutiny, faced immediate audits after I anonymously forwarded the incriminating bank transfers to the IRS, sparking a federal investigation into tax evasion and wire fraud.
but they didn't go down without a fight. Richard filed a lawsuit within 48 hours, claiming I'd fabricated the evidence and demanding millions in damages for defamation. Carlos took to X, posting a thread painting me as a vindictive ex who'd hacked his devices and staged the whole thing for attention. For a fleeting moment, some online trolls bought into it, commenting venomously, "She's obsessed, probably made it all up to go viral." But Marco's footage was raw and unedited, corroborated by the timestamps on the documents and the undeniable audio. The truth was bulletproof. Then came the game changer from Leela. She called me late one night, her voice trembling with the mix of guilt and determination. "Elena, I found something you need to see." She'd accessed Richard's old laptop during a tense family gathering, left unlocked in a moment of carelessness, and unearthed a trove of emails dating back years. They revealed Richard had been quietly siphoning Vargas Tech profits long before Carlos's involvement, using shell companies to launder the funds. Even more damning, the affair narrative they planned to pin on me was a projection. Richard had been involved with a board member at his own firm, using the relationship to manipulate votes and cover his tracks. Leela forwarded everything to me, risking complete ostracization from her family. I immediately shared it with my lawyer, Emma, a shark in fraud cases who'd taken my side pro bono after seeing the video. "This is a slam dunk, Elena," she said, her eyes gleaming over video call. "Embezzlement, conspiracy to defraud, they're looking at jail time, not just civil penalties." The legal proceedings dragged on for months, a grueling marathon of depositions, motions, and counterclaims. Every day seemed to bring a new salvo from Richard's camp. Cease and desist letters demanding I retract public statements, anonymous threats slipped under my door, even a smear campaign on social media accusing me of being unstable. I archived them all in a meticulously organized folder labeled Vargas Tech Evidence, letting their escalating desperation bolster my case. Emma presented the bombshell emails, the original bank records, Marco's unassailable recording, and expert testimony on the forged documents in court. The judge, a stern woman in her late 50s with a reputation for no-nonsense rulings, listened intently, her expression growing increasingly grim. "Mr. Torres, did you authorize these unauthorized transfers to your father's accounts?" He stammered under oath. "It was for business development." She arched an eyebrow, unimpressed. "And the affair narrative, your father's emails suggest a pattern of deceit that predates this." The courtroom fell into heavy silence, broken only by Patricia's muffled sob from the gallery. Richard's lawyers sputtered objections, but the evidence was airtight, a web of their own making that now ensnared them. The ruling came down like a hammer. Carlos and Richard were found liable for embezzlement, fraud, and emotional distress, ordered to pay $150,000 in restitution, covering the stolen funds, my mounting legal fees, and compensation for the psychological toll. Vargas Tech shares were fully restored to me, with an injunction barring them from any future involvement. Richard's firm crumbled under the weight of federal charges, leading to asset seizures and potential prison time. Carlos's restaurants shuttered one by one, the final one limping along as a ghost of its former self before closing for good. The courtroom felt like a battlefield after the smoke cleared, their defeat a palpable, quiet victory that echoed in the empty halls. Emma hugged me tightly as we exited into the crisp autumn air. "You didn't just win this case, Elena. You rewrote your entire future on your terms." In the aftermath, I expected a flood of relief, but it arrived more like a slow tide, heavy with the weight of what I'd endured. I sold the condo we'd shared, its walls too steeped in tainted memories, and relocated to a sleek loft downtown. Open concept, flooded with natural light, a blank canvas for my new beginning. I dove headfirst into revitalizing Vargas Tech, hiring fresh talent to replace the voids left by betrayal, launching innovative projects that Carlos had deliberately stalled to keep me dependent. Sophia and Marco became my unwavering anchors, showing up unannounced with takeout on rough days, their presence a reminder that true family isn't always blood. One evening, as we sat on my balcony overlooking the city skyline, Sophia nudged me gently. "You're glowing, Elena. Not the blushing bride kind, the fierce warrior kind who slays dragons." I laughed,
a genuine sound that bubbled up from somewhere deep and felt the truth of it resonate in my bones for the first time. Months blurred into a rhythm of growth and healing. A letter arrived one day from a young entrepreneur I'd once mentored at a tech conference. She'd stumbled upon my story online, now boasting over 20 million views across platforms, and wrote, "Your courage inspired me to audit my own startup's finances and uncovered a partner's embezzlement just in time. Thank you for showing us how to fight back." Touched, I joined a network of women in business, sharing my experience in panels and webinars, my voice sparking viral threads on X with hashtags like #NotYourPawn trending for weeks. Strangers reached out with messages of solidarity. "You saved my career from a similar scam. I left my toxic relationship because of your story." The empowerment rippled outward, a testament to the strength born from ashes. Carlos and Richard faded into obscurity, their once mighty presences reduced to cautionary tales. Last I heard through the grapevine, Carlos was slinging drinks at a dive bar, his charm wilted without the backing of ill-gotten gains. Richard's empire dissolved under legal scrutiny, leaving him facing years in prison for tax evasion and fraud. Leela, having severed ties with them, began visiting me regularly, our conversations mending the fractures in our relationship over shared coffees and honest confessions. One night, over a bottle of wine on that same balcony, Marco raised a glass in a quiet toast. To the woman who turned betrayal into unbreakable power,